Welcome to the Land Investing Business Secret Podcast, where each short episode we talk about the strategies, experiences, and the tools to help you launch, grow, and scale your land business. Learn how to find freedom within your own business, find out ways to build consistency in your processes, and hear how other everyday land investors are winning so you can get to the next step closer to building your dream life through your land business. And I'm your host of the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast by Pebble, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? It's Jesse here from the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast. I just had an amazing guest by the name of Justin Piche. He comes from a military background and has gotten into the land space. He's been doing it for several years. He's a seven-figure land investor, super humble. And this episode, I am telling you, take your pen, take your paper, because you're going to be taking notes. We go through strategies on building team, strategies on actual marketing tools, some of the biggest learning lessons. I didn't know Justin Piche too well. He's been a user of ours since the beginning of REI conversion, and now we're obviously renamed as Pebble. But it's so incredible to hear how much he's done. And we've crossed paths before. We've never actually hopped on a call, and so this is my first time chatting with him. I think you're going to love this episode here with Justin Piche. Anyways, enjoy this episode. Hey, how's it going, everybody? I've got Justin with me, Justin Piche. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
You did. Yeah,
I always do this. I never check with the pronunciation, but Justin, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Jesse. Thanks for having me on. This is awesome. I've been listening to your podcast for, at least 18 months now. So it's kind of crazy.
Wow, okay.
It's kind of crazy to just be on your podcast. It's exciting.
I'm really honored. I'm honored somebody listens to it. Anyways, Justin, for those who don't know you, and I know that our good friend Ajay was the one that connected us together. If you don't know who Ajay is, he's been on the podcast as well over with Clint over at Learn Land. But yeah, give us a little bit about yourself. But don't spoil it all. But you're a land investor, and I've got some questions for you. I'd love to dig in deep. But yeah, give us a little bit roundabout of how you got started with land.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Justin. Hey, everybody. I was a chemical engineer. I went to LSU, chemical engineer, and joined the Navy while I was in college, the U.S. Navy. And so I did that for a period of time. Left the Navy in 2017, moved to Houston, Texas, where I currently live and am from, and started working for oil and gas company. Like, what do you do when you're an engineer and you are from Houston? You work for oil and gas. That's just kind of how things work.
Sure.
And during that time, great. I worked for ExxonMobil, solid company, but time agency, control over your time was something that obviously you don't necessarily have when you work for somebody else. And so probably somewhere 2018, 2019, I started listening to all the Bigger Pockets podcasts, the Burr method, like wholesaling homes, et cetera, the kind of the normal entry that I think a lot of people have. And I just started jumping in. I was like, okay, I'm gonna send some mail. I don't know how to do this, but I'm gonna send some mail. Try to wholesale some houses. Got a couple of wholesale deals. Bought a couple single family houses, and at the same time, a good friend of mine, Kyle Bryant, he had been investing in land since 2019, and asked me if I wanted to fund one of his deals. And I didn't have really any experience with land at that time, and so I was like, sure. Yeah, that sounds great. I got some money. You got a deal? Let's figure this out. Gave him some money, and he doubled my money in 3 months. And it was awesome. I was like, wow, I'm spending so much money on marketing to get these peanut wholesale deals with, huge risk, buying a $100,000 house and making a $10,000, $15,000 margin on it, compared to a $15,000 profit on a $15,000 piece of land. Anyway. I saw the light at that moment in time, and basically was like, hey, Kyle, how do I do this? So that's kind of how I got started.
That's awesome. And I was doing a little bit of digging on you, and I'm reading my notes here. I always like to make that clear because I'm looking over to the left here. I read that you were a submarine warfare officer. That couldn't sound any more crazier to me. In Canada here, we don't have a lot of military presence. What was that like? What does that mean? What was that like? I'm just personally, I'm really interested in that.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of different kinds of submarines in the United States Navy. I was on a ballistic missile submarine, which colloquially is called a boomer. And a boomer, that's where the nation's nuclear missiles are on. So you're kind of in a submarine, which is nuclear powered with nuclear missiles. And it's like a strategic deterrence tool, obviously, that the United States has. And missions kind of just look like poking holes in the water, like hiding, being available, because your whole purpose is really just deterrence, right? You don't want anything crazy to happen in the world. And so those are there to kind of prevent that crazy stuff from happening. In the day to day, it was a lot of drills, very busy. People talk to me and they're like, "Oh man, I can't imagine living in a tube like that underwater for so long." But the truth is, it's like 500 feet long. I mean, these are big There's 4 decks. We had 200 men and women on the submarine, like at a time, underway, and yeah. I mean, it's like a little tiny local town with you're just elbows to elbows with everybody on that submarine.
Sure, sure. So, I mean, and you mentioned one thing. A lot of it is drills. I'd imagine to always make sure you guys are on top of it. I'm sure there's a whole sort of thing about drills and the benefits of that. But I'm interested to know, was there any skills that transferred over? Like, I'm not talking about general skills, but anything like really specific that you really felt transferred over from working on that submarine over to your land business?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, what jumps to mind is just the team aspect of a business in general. Um, One of the things I really focused on while I was in the military, in the Navy specifically, was making sure that my team was taken care of. Um,
Mm,
it can be a grind for some of these younger guys in the Navy who, they go out to sea. We all go on deployment, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it might be, and then you come back and it's not like you just get off the submarine and go hang out with your family. Now it's time for maintenance, and now you get back off this deployment and you're still working 80 to 100, 120-hour weeks, sleeping on the submarine half the time, and guys it can get really challenging, both mentally, physically, and so it may have been to my detriment, making sure that I didn't leave till my last guy left. And at the time, I didn't have children, and so it was a little bit easier to work longer hours. But that
right.
was just making sure they felt heard, making sure they got the time off with their spouses, their children, because when you're away from family for so long, it can get really hard. And so that just having that opportunity to serve those people in that way really has translated over to my land business, where I currently have 11 employees or 11 total team members, I guess, including myself, so 10 employees, and just making sure they're taken care of. Right, I'm there to serve them. I'm there to make sure that I remove barriers and boundaries from them achieving more for the business, and that's probably I guess that'd be the most applicable skill, I think, taking from one to the other.
You talk about removing barriers for your team members. I mean, can you give us an example what that looks like for you and your team? While you run your land business on a day to day. I mean, what are some of those common things that you might see that means taking care? I like the way you put it. You're there to serve your team, and I don't know if that's what you've picked up from your background, but yeah, I mean, what does that look like on potentially as a day to day for somebody who doesn't have a team yet? Like, what could that look like?
Yeah, I think there's so much friction in a business, and just in general, like any business you look at, there's a lot of friction. And what I found is that the businesses that kind of make it to the next level, they don't necessarily do it by just working harder or more. They typically do it by removing friction. And so an example might be, we send contracts out via DocuSign, and DocuSign isn't it's not the best for automations. Like, there's a whole lot of better software out there that you can integrate with Zapier, integrate into your CRM to send. And so an example might be, well, we use this tool now called esignatures.io. And esignatures.io is an API based contract software. And so and we use Follow Up Boss as our CRM for our acquisitions team. So we like creating an automation that allows any of my team members to create that contract in Follow Up Boss, send it to esignatures.io with all the right population or all the right fields populated, et cetera, and get it off so that we don't have to, take a step out and use a template in DocuSign and have another team member make it. Things like that happen every single day in the business, where I say, hey, team, when you guys are working, if there's something that is a what you would consider a workaround, or you would consider something that's causing friction, let me know. I think let's write it down. Let's create this running list so that each week we can look at, hey, what are the highest priority or most time saving things that we can automate, that we can implement to help us each achieve more without working harder necessarily.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Justin, how do you it sounds like you trust your team members quite a bit. From the way I can just hear the way you sort of talk about your team and the people that you served in the past. And how do you sort of go about empowering them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the first thing, it kind of starts with treating them as people and as team
Mhm.
members. I think that in a lot of this kind of business, people like to hire overseas, and I'll be the first to admit, like most of my team is overseas, um, and we refer to them as VAs, right? That's like the common language in this business, a virtual assistant. But I don't really necessarily view them as VAs. I view them as employees. Like they're employees. They happen to live somewhere else. They're employees. They're
Yep.
members of our team. They're essential to help make this business scalable and move forward. And so that it starts with that attitude of just, hey, these people are on your team. You're all working towards the same goal. Like, so that's the start. And then I think a lot of it is just aligning uh, compensation with everybody rowing, and so that everybody's rowing in the same direction. A lot of the way that I structure compensation on my team is based on the business does well, like we all do well. Like there's bonuses, there's commission, and it's all based on how well we're able to get properties through the pipeline and sold. And so there's not really internal competition. I know there's a lot. Some people like to say, oh, well, this acquisitions associate, they they closed X number of deals, and so they get this bonus. And that acquisitions associate closed these deals, so they get a little bit lower bonus. I'm not a huge fan of
Right.
of that kind of compensation structure, because I think it sort of pits people against each other, and it can feel challenging, and conflict arising in that atmosphere. And so I like to have everybody rowing in the same direction. Um,
So to keep
and
them rowing in the same direction, to kind of dive a little bit deeper, do you have like sort of a team bonus plan type of thing, or if we all meet a goal together, we all get honored that bonus? How does that work for you guys?
Yeah, so we do a commission based on properties sold. So when we sell properties, like everybody on the team gets a commission based on that property sale. And then we do quarterly discretionary bonuses based on profit for the business.
Awesome.
The quarterly profit share is not necessarily something that's guaranteed. As anybody who's running a business probably knows, like there are quarters and seasons where you're doubling down on growth, like where maybe instead of taking money out of the business, you're focusing more on increasing your capital stack, or bringing on additional employees to scale for the marketing spend you might have next quarter, whatever it might be. But the idea is that when we have a profitable quarter, which happens, right? I mean, we wouldn't be in business if we weren't. Then that money is obviously shared amongst the team. So I mean, there's an incentive for everybody to move towards that goal.
Justin talks heavily in this episode about his team, how he has over 10 people on his team, how he's built processes, and how he's really earned back his time. It's all about building repeatable processes. And this is exactly what we lean into when it comes to building out what Pebble is. Having the ability to build out processes, task lists, so that your team members, as soon as they log in, they know exactly what they need to do and when they need to do it by. This way, there is no chasing. Everybody's on the same page, and we can easily see who is dropping the ball, making sure that you only have the best performers on the team. So, if you want to understand more about scaling your business, more about building processes, this is something that I talk heavily about. I don't talk about pricing. I don't talk about land strategies. I only talk about building repeatable processes. If you want to learn more, make sure you head over to pebblerei.com, hit book a demo, the big fat red button at the top there, and let's jump on a call. I'd love to hear some of the challenges that you're working through when it comes to building your team and scaling your business, whether that's growing the business or finding some more time to be with your friends, family, or maybe some of your hobbies. Anyways, enjoy the rest of this episode. And thanks again for opening up about the way you compensate your team. I know that a lot of people have a lot of questions or wonder about that. So I want to sort of rewind it a little bit. I read that you got started in land late 2020. We're coming up to now almost 36 months. In fact, our company Pebble here is we just crossed the 36-month mark here, which is 3 years. But looking back from where you are right now, how would you have done things differently for your land business?
Wow. Actually, I think about this often because I've started kind of tweeting a little bit more and just kind of meeting people in the space that are either new or getting into the space. I had coffee actually with a gentleman here in Houston recently, and he asked me that question of like, "Hey, what should I do to get started?" And my thought, I went back and I was like, "What would I do if I was starting fresh?" And I think the answer is really just where are you spending your marketing dollars? Uh, I would use launch control as like a marketing system. I think that's kind of like the first thing I would do. I would just try to lower my cost per lead down from sending mail, which is obviously the typical way I think a lot of people get started. And I would probably hire somebody a little bit sooner and train them to do those kind of admin type tasks that are repeatable, that are trainable, because your time is much better spent on those higher dollar value add tasks, especially at the beginning, like negotiating. Like that's a really high value add task when you're first starting. I think as you get further along, it becomes away from negotiating and is more can be focused on capital raising or like marketing planning, those type of activities. But certainly hire somebody a little bit earlier and probably start with a lower dollar per lead acquisition tool like Launch Control over direct
You
mail.
got cut off there every time you said something dollar. Was it lower your marketing dollars, Justin?
It was lower your marketing tool, like the dollars you're spending on marketing to get a lead. uh,
Okay,
Texting is a
got you.
cheaper tool to get a buyer lead than
Got you.
direct mail, at least in my experience. So I would start with a more
Yeah.
cost effective tool. Not sure what to do about this
So
internet. I'm like, my router's right there, but it seems to be not ideal right now.
so Justin, you're talking about launch control. If you guys don't know, launch control dot is it dot us? Is that the link, right?
That's right.
Um, so with launch control, recently I think they went through a pretty major price hike. In your eyes, are you seeing that as still a very worthwhile platform to be getting your marketing out through?
Yeah, I am. I think that as a first pass tool in a multi-touch marketing campaign, it's a really effective because you can send out 1,000 messages, and in those 1,000 messages, you will likely get about 300 responses. And right there, those 300 responses can save you, 300 letters. I mean, scale that up obviously for larger marketing amounts, but anything saved on a 55, 60 cents mailer is good in my book. You get a lot of no's, you get a lot of not interested, but then you also get some folks that maybe aren't going to reply to a mailer, but they'll reply to a text. I think that with
Yeah.
marketing in general, there's a bunch of different people that you're marketing to, and some of them prefer text as a marketing channel, right? Some of them prefer mail as a marketing channel. Some of them prefer cold calling, etc.
Yeah.
And you really need to be using multiple marketing channels to hit your entire target list. You're going to miss people if you're not using all those marketing channels.
Yeah. Yeah. And thanks for sharing that. I think there has been a hesitation towards texting through a platform like Launch Control because of the recent price hike. But I definitely do see the people that are doing it are finding great, still very, very great value and return on your ad spend through a platform like Launch Control. I actually don't know of other texting platforms to date right now that isn't getting flagged. I'm sure Justin, the carriers are all getting together. There's been a lot of changes. You see me wearing the Twilio hat here. There's been a lot of changes going on in the texting world. We won't get into that because we would spend a lot of time on that. But hey, Justin, it might be something you want to talk to about. I want to change gear here, and thanks for giving us that sort of strategic input on finding leads. How about in terms of team members? What would you say was your most pivotal hire to get you to your seven-figure sort of business at this point? I'm hoping I'm saying that right, seven figures or eight
Yeah.
figures. I don't know.
No, seven
Yeah.
figures. Not haven't made eight figures in profit yet. That'd be fantastic. But
What
hopefully
would you
here in the
say?
future.
Yeah, yeah, right. What is your sort of, what would you say is the most pivotal team members that help you get to a seven-figure hire? I'm sorry, a
Yeah.
seven-figure deal, or annual revenue or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think so. For me, it has absolutely been my acquisitions manager, like hiring somebody who can be on the phone closing deals.
Right.
That is the most pivotal thing, because like as the business owner, right, you can spend a bunch of time closing deals, and you can get to seven figures, absolutely, closing deals yourself. But it's going to be it's going to feel like you're flying by the seat of your pants. You don't have enough time to work these leads and ensure you're following up consistently in the right manner, building these relationships, because that's really what that's what it's all about, right? You're not just buying land, you're solving a problem, you're building a relationship with people. And if you are doing that all yourself, it's going to be, unless you're targeting incredibly high profit properties only, it's just going to be hard to scale that to a seven figure or eight figure level.
So, and I think I heard you right. Again, it got a little bit choppy, but is it an acquisition manager that you have as one of
Yeah.
your key hires?
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry about this
Okay.
internet issue, Jesse. I'm not sure
No,
exactly
you're
what's
good.
happening.
I'm hoping for you guys listening might not even hear anything, because I'm hoping our platform will just upload his raw file here. It might just be our connection. So
Okay.
for those of you who are listening, I apologize if I keep saying I can't hear it, but it's sort of a little bit choppy here. But Justin, sorry, coming back to your pivotal hires, you're talking about your acquisition managers. How many do you have on your team right now? And what's the hiring process like for an acquisition manager?
Yeah. So I have one acquisitions manager,
Wow,
and
okay.
she runs our acquisitions team, which is a team of five people, including her. So she's the manager of that team, and then she has four folks that report into her. And the way that team is structured is we have folks in launch control. We're using ringless voicemail as well, and so we have somebody working our ringless voicemail system, and then
Yeah.
we have our acquisitions manager and another closer, real estate closer, who negotiates comps, negotiates with our sellers. And for hiring, I actually used Learn Land, Clint Turner, and their VA training program to hire my first two acquisitions team members. And it was great for where I was in the business. I think now I kind of like to have a little bit more control over the candidates that are coming in. And so, I can go through I just hired two people last week. And so I can totally go through kind of what I would do right now if I was hiring a new hire, if
Sure,
you're
yeah, we'd
interested.
love to hear that.
Yeah. So, what I do now is I use a program called remoteco.com, which is a Latin American based kind of Indeed jobs. And I'll post a job on there. It's I think it's like $199 for a month. So you've got to kind of commit, some money to get your job application out there. But I find that the last job I had 46 applicants right
Wow.
through that posting within 3 weeks. And from there, what I do is obviously, this is a U.S. based sales role, and so spoken English is one of the most important skills. And so the next step, what I do is there's a website called myinterview.com, and it's a video interview platform where you can record kind of an introduction and have each person submit their resume there. You can have them do video questions. And so for me, it was really just, hey, are you willing to work full time? Because some people aren't, and that's obviously like a auto rejection question. If you can't work full time, I'm looking for someone for a full time position. And then the
Yeah.
next question is just, hey, why are you interested in working in this job? What motivates you? Tell me a little bit about yourself. And the real purpose is just to gauge English, but also just to see kind of what they're about. And that's it. That's the first interview question. And then that got sent out to all the applicants, and whoever kind of completed it, that was the list to go through. And then me and my sales manager went through, watched all those videos, selected five folks for Zoom interviews, scheduled those interviews,
Wow.
and then sent job offers to the two people that we thought best fit the roles. But it just saved so much time doing it that way.
I love that. Can you mention those tools again? Was something remote.co?
Remoteco.com. remoteco.com.
Lote Co?
Remoteco.com.
Oh, sorry, Remote Co. Gotcha.
Yes. So
RemoteCo.com. And then you talked about myinterview.com. Is that right?
that's right. Yep.
Okay.
Myinterview.com.
Awesome. Thank you for dropping all of those. I hope you guys listening right now have your pens out and pausing and making notes, because Justin Piche is literally giving us exactly some of the tools that he's used to build his team here. And just from speaking with you, Justin, it sounds like you know exactly what you're doing here. So we've got those two tools. You talked about how you're building your team right now. Is there right now you're sort of you've got a team of 10 people, 11 people, is that right? What are you doing with that time? I'm out of
Yeah.
just curiosity. Are you growing the business even more? Are you having more time with the family? What does that look like for you now compared to 3 years ago?
Yeah. I think it's twofold. The first is obviously I do spend a little bit more time with my family, which is fantastic. So my kids go to school about a mile from my house, and so every morning, except for this morning, it's raining in Houston. I drove, but I walk them to school. I walk the dog. I walk them to school. I walk a mile, drop them off, and then walk home. And so and I can't even drop them off until like 8:30 to 9. And so I really don't. I
Right.
don't even get on my computer typically until 9:15 in the morning. Um, and it's just
Yeah.
like it's a special. Like it's this family time. My kids are only going to be this little for so much time, and then it's gone, right? And so I'm able to treasure those moments, which I really love. And then in the afternoon, just being there to pick them up from school at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
And there's obviously, there's things that come up that you gotta deal with. And so not every day I'm there, but most days I'm picking them up from school and off the computer by 4:30, going on a walk, having dinner, whatever it might be, with the family. So that's the first thing. And then the other thing would be I have more time personally during the day to focus on development deals. So not necessarily just straight flips,
Yep.
but subdivides and managing contractors and doing kind of the project management side, which I really enjoy of a development project.
Yeah. Uh, Justin, that sounds really nice. And looking back on your journey here, again, it's been, well, let's include, and well, you can include before land as well, but what would you say is your biggest event that costed the most? I don't want to use the word mistake, but
Hmm,
you learned the most from.
man, I want to say timing. Like I think I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, Jesse, and I've listened to a lot of folks' podcasts, and I think a common kind of thing that folks deal with is just they wish they had gotten into the business earlier, right? I mean,
Hmm.
there's so much opportunity in the land space, and I think we all kind of feel there's a lot of more people coming, but I'm typically I'm of the abundance mindset. Like I think there's plenty for everybody at the moment. I think we're relatively protected from kind of institutional buyers because a lot of these deals are just too small. I mean, they're too small, they're too localized for the big guys to come in and really really push the margins smaller.
Yeah.
We got some time, I think, but just getting in earlier, that'd be kind of my
Yeah.
number one. And then if you want to hear about a specific deal, I think perk tests are super important. You should, if you're in an area where land doesn't perk typically, I'll save the gory details, but get a perk test if you're in doubt.
Awesome, awesome. Justin, I appreciate you. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners here?
Just in general, yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that's really helped my business grow, obviously scaling the team, but switching or just adding the tool of subdividing properties to my tool belt.
Mm,
It's there's a lot of deals that come across your desk that don't maybe make sense as a flip. Like they just aren't, they don't pencil out, right? The buyer or the seller wants too much money or the market's not there, whatever it might be. But if you can take that property and force appreciation, honestly,
mm,
it's better for everybody, right? I mean, the seller can make more money on the property because you can pay closer to market or market, and then you can make more money because you're actually doing work to increase the value of the property. It's kind of like the the economy is not a pie, right? It's not like if somebody gets a piece, like there's only so much left for everybody else. It's kind of the same way with land, right? It's not like there's a set amount of land value. You can create value by
Yeah.
subdividing, by creating these parcels that are more attainable for everyday folks to buy and create a homestead and whatever. Anyway, that's a great tool to add to your tool belt.
I appreciate that. And there's been a lot of talk, obviously, about subdividing and really just creating value out of thin air almost. Justin, I come to this part of the podcast. I call it the quick fire round. And I've got some questions that are completely not land related. I'm going to fire them off at you and I'll let you answer those, okay?
Sounds good.
Outside of land, what do you like doing?
Yeah, I think obviously hanging with my family and my kids. They're pretty young, 4, 2, and I have another one on the way. And so it's a lot of riding bikes. It's a lot of scooters. It's a lot of chalk. It's a lot of walks, going to the park. I spend a lot of time doing that type of stuff. And a funny story. So we had this friend, my wife and I, who maybe 5, 6 years older than us. His kids were, before we had kids, he had kids our age, right?
Sure.
And she'd go to work. She was a coworker of hers. She'd go to work, and they'd ask each other about their weekends. And she'd be like, "Oh yeah, how was your weekend?" And he'd go, "Oh man, it was fantastic. Like I went to the pool with my kids. Like we went to the park, and my son like slid down the slide so fast. It was awesome." And back then, being newly married and not having kids were like lame. Like sounds like a lame weekend. But now that's
totally
my amazing. I totally get it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's incredible. So that working out, I'm actually in my garage gym right now because my son is home from school in the house,
Right.
and so this microphone would have picked up some screams and crying, and so I decided I got to go somewhere a little quieter for this. So working out, staying fit, with the goal of being able to throw my kids as high as possible for as long as possible.
I love that.
Yeah.
I really love that. I can relate to you as a new dad myself.
Oh, hey, congratulations.
Thank you. Well, he's 5 now. He just started kindergarten.
Yeah. Well, holy moly. Then you're in it.
I've got another question. If you had to recommend one book that you recently read, what would it be and why?
Yeah. So non-fiction, I would say Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. I don't know if that's been recommended much on here, but what a great book. Yeah. What a fantastic book about like just the philosophy behind hiring and the philosophy behind your time. I've used a lot of the tools in his book, obviously for myself, but also for some of the management team on my company, like my sales manager, informing hiring new sales assistants to come in to help our sales process. We're doing the kind of matrix of laying out all the tasks that we're doing and what's the highest value, what gives him life, what brings profit to the business, and then what are the things he maybe doesn't like that are repeatable, that are teachable, that are trainable, that we can bring somebody in at a lower cost per hour to do. Yeah, it's just really powerful stuff for scaling a team.
Always brings smiles to me when I hear Dan Martell gets recommended on here. He's been recommended. I've recommended him. So if you haven't heard me talk about it, Buy Back Your Time, make sure you do grab that book. What is one guilty pleasure of yours, Justin?
Man, ice cream.
Well, I only asked this question because today in our retrospect team meet, we always have an icebreaker question. This was the one I chose, and we had a blast answering it. But I would love to hear what your guilty pleasure is.
Yeah, no, honestly, I don't know how guilty it is, but it does feel guilty sometimes. It's just ice cream. Like I've never been a dessert person, but my wife is absolutely a dessert person. And so if it was up to me, I wouldn't have anything in the house, but if it's in the house, it's going to be eaten. And so I have no self-control. If there's like a pint of ice cream in the refrigerator or in the freezer rather, it's done. I got to crush it.
That's awesome. All right. Who would you recommend to have on this podcast and why?
Oh man. I knew this question was coming. I should have been more prepared to think about it. Honestly, you've had a lot of great people that I know on this podcast. I mean, Ajay, obviously Buck, Drew Haney. Like those are some really solid guys that you've had on here recently. I don't know if you've had.
I love talking to people who are just getting started as well, because there's a lot that they can reveal. In the early stages that you may have forgotten, and things have changed quite a bit since you started. But anyways, is there anybody that sort of comes to mind, whether they're super experienced or even not?
Yeah, I think so. My friend Kyle. How about that? I don't know if you had anybody, Kyle Bryant, on the podcast, but Kyle he started a company with another guy named Matt Walt called Crockett Capital, and they're kind of going in a direction with larger kind of conservation developments. There's super interesting kind of philosophy behind development, where you keep obviously a lot of open space in the development and have smaller clusters of homes. But maybe you take like 100 acres and you only have structures and homes on 10 acres of it, and the rest of it is just beautifully laid out, kind of conservation, park, trails, etc. Just creating beautiful places to live. That's kind of what they're working on. They have a fund right now, and anyway, he'd be an interesting person to talk through. He's obviously been in that space for a while.
Absolutely. I appreciate you recommending him. Justin, I want to thank you for your time here. How can people learn more about you? How can they reach you? How can they engage with you? What are you doing in this space? We'd love to know. I'm sure somebody listening right now is like, oh, I want to get in touch with Justin, and how should I do that? What's the best way they should reach out to you?
Yeah, I recently started being on Twitter in January, so that's a great spot at scouting the number 4 land. That's my Twitter handle, so folks can reach out there. And then I just started a website. I was talking to JT Olmstead at the Casual Fridays REI meetup in Dallas a few weeks ago, and he mentioned he started a website. Just like kind of like like a resume, if like hey, here's my information website. So I just started one, justinpiche.com. People can go there. I think I have a Calendly link to book some time to chat with me if desired. So, if it gets blown up, I might have to restrict the hours or something. But anyway,
you guys now know where to go.
Yeah,
we'll make sure to include that in the show notes, and let's bombard his calendar. Cool. Hey, Justin, it's I've literally spent here 35 minutes getting to know you, and I think we've been on each other's radar before, and it's you were working with us for a while, and it's great to finally be able to chat with you. So I appreciate you so much coming on here, sharing your story, and really dropping nuggets on this episode here. If you want to dive a little bit further with Justin, you know where he's at. Justin, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jesse, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. All right. See you later. Before you stop this episode or hit the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast by Pebble. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate any awesome reviews and ratings on whichever platform you are listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast or the specific episode that may help them on their land investing journey. Once again, thanks so much for listening, and catch you on our next episode.